Starting promptly. I'm really enjoying this section. I'm really glad you're all here to enjoy it with us. So we have question number 4 and group number 4. Therefore, move forward.
There's no doubt that Professor Smith thinks that developing a valid theory and method for comparison is essential to the future of the academic study of religion. He writes, lacking a clear articulation of purpose, one may derive arresting anecdotal juxtapositions or self-serving differentiations, but the disciplined constructive work of the Academy will not have been advanced, nor will the study of religion have come of age. Given the atomistic nature of our field with highly specialized area studies, comparison is necessary so specialists can learn from each other and so we can deal with religion as a whole. Historically, comparison has emphasized similarities across time and geography. Smith argues strenuously that comparison needs to stress differences instead, and that historical context cannot be ignored. In discussing comparison, he develops a rigorous vocabulary of approaches: ethnographic, encyclopedic, morphological, evolutionary. Professor Smith, we have several general questions about comparison. What advancements have been made in recent years on the theory and methods of comparison? The essays in Comparison of Magic Still Dwells, for example, do not seem to address your concerns. Is anybody doing interesting work on comparison now? What role will comparison play in the future? And finally, are there any other questions about comparison we should address?
I'll move to your comment on comparison of Magic Dwells. There are a substantial number of things that impact on the question of comparison. I don't know that I have confidence that we have seen major new articulations of comparison per se. For instance, which I had not known much about when I wrote the pieces that you're referring to, people like Amos Bernstein's work on similarity, which to be extraordinarily interesting, particularly raised the question of how we sort of everyday scale the relevance of comparisons. How we rank them and so on. And so it seems to me there's an enormous literature there. By the way, interestingly, you think all the work of it, or lots of the work of it, appears in MIT's Journal of Cognition. The cognitive folks that I've been referring to, by and large, have not picked up the issue of similarity. They picked up one aspect of it, Scott Atran in particular, bulk biology, bulk taxonomy, and classify things, which is a way of looking at the problem of comparison and grouping things largely by similarity, although by implication by difference as well. So there are some studies going on that are, I think, important and helpful to our work. And there are some extremely good practitioners about who are not related to our work. Some of the best of the so-called new historians are, in fact, wonderful comparativists. They just don't hit you over the head about that being what they're doing, but this constant play back and forth is really quite remarkable work. They don't help us think about how they do it and almost allow you to say, well, they just have an eye for it. It's the worst thing you could possibly say to think, but we do say it very often, especially, I think, of an anthropologist and historian. They can take an anecdote and make it a universal, and it's extraordinary. Ed Leach wrote once, I mean, here's Paul Rushton rummaging about, and suddenly the Trobriand Islander becomes humanity in general, and they have this remarkable ability to blow up a photograph. And a good historian, Peter Brown, is a genius, taking an itty-bitty little anecdote and getting an enormous, stupid old stylus assignment on top of his column. Suddenly, an entire theory about a world change in religion attitude comes out of that little E.G. The trouble is it seems to be more a gift than it is an art. I would wish there would be more explicit study in all of the fields of the human sciences. It doesn't matter natural sciences do comparison every day. Really, it is only the taxonomists who turn to the varied forms of so-called numerical taxonomy who've tried to replace the eye. It looks alike to me with a set of theories about why it in effect has to be alike, has to be related. But they're interested in genealogical questions, which I have tried to say is not the most useful use of comparison. So I think there are important new resources. Certainly my notebooks of people who have written about comparison is 3 times larger than it used to be. I'm not sure that there's been any major advance in the business, even given all of that work. There still is a sense, inheritance maybe from comparative religion, which both ignores difference in order to get some common essence on how you picture it, but also that there is built into that enterprise comparison in the second sense of the word and a value into it. When I was at Yale, there was one course in comparative religion taught by a lovely guy who wrote some brilliant stuff. And I suppose to just make it all sink in, he went to the blackboard and put up a grade sheet of the religions of the world. Protestantism got an A. Catholicism got a B. After that, it was terrible. Everyone else got a D, except for Bhakti, which he wrote cheerfully next to it, the Protestantism of India. So it wiggled across the line. Well, that sense of comparison ought to be killed off as fast as possible. And I think it doesn't, we have not successfully rid ourselves of the burden of that term. So I'm not surprised we haven't done as well as we've done. Now I have written down, but I blew it unfortunately by already saying it, that it does seem to me that my own thinking, I have been helped by this notion of comparison as an experiment, and this unpublished stuff, which tries to work very hard on what I call implied by that sort of notion, which suggests far more deliberateness, I suppose, than I have suggested before. It's not rhetorically, you can read me sometimes and get the feeling, gee, he reads a lot of funny stuff, and he happened to note that this thing looks kind of like that thing. I mean, he was reading Kafka, and he found a little story there, then God knows what reason, he was reading Plutarch on women, and he happened to notice a story that was kind of like the story in Kafka, and it all looks very accidental. And so the nice thing about experiment is it suggests you might actually be out there looking for this kind of stuff. Indeed, you might be tweaking a little bit to make it happen. So it introduces a bit more sense of purpose to it all that active, that's not just relying on happenstance. And there, obviously, I think, I'm a complete computer illiterate. I hate the goddamn thing. I won't use it. I think it violates Marx's great ethical principle that a worker should not be alienated from the product of his work. And I'll be goddamned if a machine will do analog is fine. I hit the key, it hits. I made it hit. I don't know what the hell makes that other thing hit. So, morally offense. But I do know, because I read a little article about that something like Google is based on comparison. You tell it what you're interested in, it'll find it. Now, it'll find a lot of irrelevant shit along the way, but it will find it. And so it does seem to me that comparison is no longer to be left to the idiosyncrasies of the comparators, what they happen to know. Now it seems to me technologically possible. I won't do it, but it's technologically possible to tell some goddamn contraption to go find it. And to that degree, I think there's an enormous new sets of possibilities. Because one of the things that makes a comparison to lots of folks, including myself, around about midnight, is that it always compares an example to an example. It doesn't compare a group to a group, a class to a class. And I take it, if it's good for nothing else, that's what this contraption is good for. It could assemble a group. You might have to have some taste then to judge from what shows up on some of these searches that my colleagues have shown me. You might have to cross out 90% of what it has found for you. But it doesn't allow you to compare group to group. And it seems to me when that happens, we will be much more content with the process. It will sound much less iffy, to use the great dichotomy that I don't like, but it's around, much less interpretative in the sense that it happens to have, predilections, to stain your eyeglasses that particular day. So I do think the idea of populations, to use the language my botanical taxonomists use, in comparison across populations would be one thing. I think a number of works have been done on issues, particularly of what make things similar, which naturally, as you work more and more on that, emphasizes, in fact, how many different types of differences there are, because you're going to have to meet each one of them and test for each one of them to make a claim about similarity, much less what I'm insisting on to the other side. So that's what I would say back. I think it's in good shape, but it's not in good odor. And that's the issue.
Questions?
If there was a major advancement in comparison through technology, and we were able to compare more effectively in this manner, what do you think would be worth comparing, and what would the necessary kind of decision be to take on this? You have this at your, fingertips there, like an easy way to compare. What would you compare? And where would we go from that?
A highly relevant question. This is what you want to know. Why you want to know it. That is, as with any method, the method ain't the answer. The method is how you approach your answer. There are lots of other things you have to do in order to come up with a conclusion from it. You're better off better you get, particular method or methods that you employ, the sharper the questions. It's back to my teetering on the edge thing. The difficult cases, the limit cases, the cases where in this respect I can compare, but in that respect, oh, no, I cannot, and I thought I could. What's causing that? That becomes the kind of question you want to hit yourself. Why should, let me go back to another example, why shouldn't every other way of being planned, but the one way we said counted, it ain't green? So it's at that point, and then you have a decision to make. Famously, the lumpers and the splitters. You create a whole new category to handle the plants that don't have chlorophyll, or you think of a way to get them in. Nabokov, with his famous work on blue butterflies, of a particular kind, the blues, it's claimed he never saw a single blue which he didn't think belonged to a new species. I mean, every butterfly he ever met was truly individual to him. You get nowheres with that. If everything is itself alone, you're finished. Your job is done. Go home. Nothing more can be said that's of any interest. So the question is what to relax and what to emphasize. What characteristics you want to italicize, what ones don't. And there, I think, the more candidates you have in front of you, the better your answer to that question is likely to be. You'll see something like at least one or two of Nabokov's blues that really are damn a different species. You'll see others that will within the range of variation you would expect within a species. That means you have what any museum has. Dozens of drawers of the poor little buggers, all pinned in a row for you to look at and get a sense of how much can it vary before it crosses some line, before it's no longer an example A, but possibly an example B. So that's where I think the numerical helps. I don't think just having numbers on your side helps you. That's not what's going to do it. It's going to sharpen what you do. By the way, 3 or 4 directly backward. Oh, sir, say use the rear view mirror next time around. Please go ahead now.
I was wondering if you were aware of, and if so, what your response was to William Hayden's appropriation of your formula comparison into what he's called comparison, other than just comparison.
I've read a lot of Bill's work. I'm not recognizing the particular description of this game. I don't remember a place. I haven't read a place where that was the first 4 terms, so no, I can't comment. His new comparison struck me as rather well-aged cheese, but to be honest with you, which is not a criticism, of course, it's what-aged cheese.
Yeah.
But I didn't see much there that struck me truly new. What he did. He's out there with it. You know, you kick your enemies, you don't kick your friends. He's out there. He's unembarrassed about the word. He's prepared to use it. He's even prepared to tell you that it's a new bill of goods, not an old one. And so, bracket the sentence I gave you. He's doing the Lord's work.
Lawrence work.
No.
I have to set PhD exams for students in comparison. And I'm struck every time I do that. I do it a couple times a year. How hard it is to find good comparison. Not theoretical works about comparison. Some of that is good, some of that, as you know. But it's strikingly difficult to find people who are actually engaged in good comparison. comparison. You really do the work. And having been your student 20 years ago, remembering that you said something similar 20 years ago, why are we still at this sort of impasse?
I think because we consider it very much a low-level means, not a high priority end. Because it's something you do on your way to doing what counts. And so it plays the same role that an exemplar plays. You throw it out, it's an EG, and then you just go on. And so we satisfied ourselves and whatever we're talking about has occurred at least twice. That gets out of that issue, and on we go. I mean, that nothing more needs to be done. Now, in certain cases, and to me they're the more uninteresting ones, really extended comparisons, usually very formal, will be interested in genealogy. It's family resemblance in a non-metaphorical sense of that term, and it's common descent. And there you will sometimes get quite extensive. The Dumézil is extraordinary in the extensiveness and the detail of its comparison. But after all, it's the proven thesis we all accepted a long time ago, that there is a genetic relationship among Indo-European families, and if they all speak the same family of language, there might be some conceptual similarity among them as well as some acceptable differences. I mean, it's an enormous amount of wondrous work for a very small piece of a man, which I would have conceded before I read him. Now, aesthetically, it's like Fox Goldberg variations. It's beautiful to read the man. It really is. It's beautiful. He can get more out of a vowel than any human being on the face of this earth. Owl is chicken feet. But it really doesn't help us a whole lot. So I would say that and I think that goes back to this comparative religion issue. If you want to say what I'm after is comparative religion, everyone's going to run holding their nose. So what we have to do is work out a dignified goal for that to occupy relatively, just relatively, because it isn't that, relatively more of our attention than it has, without claiming that that's the ultimate end of what we're engaged in, something like that. But it's a very satisfactory answer, I have to admit. I have very few times where I looked at, man, that's a humdinger. I wish I had made that, which is the ultimate tribute you could ever pay, and that is not a frequent occurrence. In fact, I can't think of an example.
If you do, send it to yourself.
But I'm being safe, I'm playing the odds. There must be one. I just can't come up with it now at the end of the day.
I think we should move on to the fourth or the last question area. We'll make sure we finish on time, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
White lies are those self-consciously fabricated when discussing the study of religion with students in a non-specific manner. That is, when we gloss over complex, problematic issues and inconsistencies in our fields. The texts we present and conceal the revisionary histories of the object we examine. We neglect to mention the intricacies of contextual and linguistic interpretation and present students with sufficiently footnoted facts, creating the illusion development, and how can we, you initiated religious studies scholars, promote this transformation in the next 4 years? As well, second question, what is your vision for the ideal classroom setting?
Let me just start with, it's not an essay, and I didn't publish it. It's an artifact of this goddamn internet. It was a formal remarks that I made to 20 or so prospective teachers who were graduate students. And I was asked to talk, and I followed Wayne Booth, which is no position any rhetorician wants to be in. And on the way out, the young lady who chaired the session said, would I mind letting her have my remarks? And I handed it to her and walked away, and that was the last I knew, until someone told me it's on the internet. In fact, I saw it cited with a footnote with some strange thing where you also say the very day you looked at it, a kind of precision that usually is only to apparitions of the Virgin Mary. I swore it. Because I guess like the Virgin Mary, it may not be there tomorrow. That aside, then, Russ McCutcheon asked if he could find the publisher, and said he showed me about 15 articles that was citing it, and I said, well, shit, yes, I mean, what did I do? That's already. Why it's in this book, I've never figured out. There's nothing as far as I can see to do with this book, but there it is. Anyway, that's the end of that. No wonder he doesn't like the neck. What you're trying to do in a short way, can't make up for a lifetime. What I'm going to do in a short way is to introduce complexity. That's all we're trying to do. For one moment. So you're, and early on, so you're able, the next time, when you do have to lie, you say, but remember what we did then. Easy way, take some text they've heard of. Show them, right up there. Give them a Varior of Shakespeare. Give them a Matthew, Mark, and Luke on some episode. Give them, I make a poster where I've got something from Plato's Republic, and let them see how much manuscript lies behind that and how much guessing is lying, learned guessing. It's not an attempt to debunk the thing. Learned guessing lies behind filling in all the gaps. Remind them that we have no manuscript from ancient Greece. This is all pretty late stuff. How do we go about doing that? You can do it in 20 minutes if you really think about it a lot. And then you have a reference point. The next time we read a text like it came from Sinai, remind them that the damn thing at the very least had no vowels. Just have a point where you can keep making that sort of case, and I think you can do it. Quickly. To start off the very first day of class, and ask them to define something, and then towards the end of class, tell them right on the syllabus, no mystery. Your final paper will be revising your definition with specific reference to what we've read in class, but to know these are moving artifacts. That instead of my giving you a definition, which you now hold to be a self-evident truth, understand we keep working with these things and make a grade be attached to it so they know it's real. It's a fact, not a theory. That's what they're telling me. All right, no, do that sort of thing. Do what the law school does. Take a paragraph in the next day's assignment and tell them they have a homework assignment. I want them to boil it down to X number of words using no words not used by the author. Shrinking it. Get it down, abstract it, what we all knew how to do before Xerox was invented. Don't get me on that one, because I don't like that one either. Learn how to abstract something. And then go back to the paragraph and see what got lost. See what that act, of necessary act, so you'll never remember it, but what that necessary, what wholeheartedly. It left out all of the qualifications. It left out all the examples. It left out everything. In fact, that when you had read it, you were interested in it because of. But know that that's what we do. So when I get up there, you know, the old Talmudic test, to deal with something or other while standing on one leg. When I do that, that's what I've just done. And know that. And thank me for it and hate me for it. Because I thought I cheated you in what this really was about. And yet I let you, I've done for you what you probably will not, given your own schedules, do for yourselves into the next couple of weeks, which is face the whole day of the second, and face a complex sense of context, not just how this passage relates to the book, but how the book relates to all the author's other books, which is how they relate to all the books on the topic written at the time, which is how they relate to the intellectual. I mean, all that stuff I cheerfully taken care of in about 4 minutes. So writing is actually too kind a word for what we do. So we do that, but it's necessary. That's the point. So that's what I would do. I think that you want to. The most important thing is not the device you use; it's that you call their attention to it, and you remind them of it periodically. That we're looking at cooked stuff, pre-digested stuff, the sense that they're wrestling with the, you know, our great books from you're wrestling with the original text of the original mind. The hell you are. How do I know that? Because when I became dean, I got access to a lot law, which gave me the exams that they used to give these poor bastards at Chicago Famous College under Mr. Hutchins. And I nearly croaked when I read them. Here's one of them. Niels Bohr has his model of his atom in his hand. That's enough worth some imaginative effort right there. He's walking around with a little bugger. He walks up to, get this, Euclid, Aristotle, Kant, and I think Spinoza. And he says, what do you think of this? And then they give you multiple choice answers. Not one of which says, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Good answer. And that's the cost of the digestive process, right? We all have a couple of sentences we can say about a lot of subjects, but sort of everything that may fly got swallows out. So try to keep reminders. On your other question, I have frankly no picture of an ideal classroom. I have taught 850 intellectual in Santa Barbara, and I've taught one-on-one. I find them each have their own dynamics, and each are quite wonderful in their own way. But folks, there's nothing more like a when you're in intensive care and you got a monitor, there's nothing more like a monitor than 850 buttocks moving on a chair while you speak. This rumble comes at you. Have they lost me? Am I talking too long about that? It's too few. I was shut up 10 minutes ago. It's too few of you to assault me like that. It's nothing like sitting across the desk with someone and watching them. So to me, no, there's no ideal classroom, but there are sure as hell different modes of teaching. But that I would not behave, you know, one-on-one like I do in 850 or in 50 or so on. There are different styles. I wouldn't feel the need to consciously put in wake-ups, you know, shit or some word like that. I wouldn't make a joke a one-on-one. I wouldn't damn well would I? There's 850. I might even get really desperate and show them the movie. So there really is no ideal, but what you so many now, but we didn't used to make circles out of those chairs. That used to never be done. That's something that's happened the last 20 odd years of teaching the common practice at the college level. Why? Because in kindergarten, you all sat on those chairs in little circles, and they wanted to make clear this is higher education. So no circles, square. So, I have never taught until recently when I'm not so nimble as I used to be. I used to always go to the classroom I was teaching, and I used to sit in different places and get a sense of what to see in the blackboard. I've got a great wealth of videotaping. It shows all those tics and mannerisms you have that you didn't know you had. Some of which you can't control, some of which you damn well can and ought to. I made it available to our faculty when I was dean, and so obviously the dean had to have it done to him first, because all my colleagues thought it was a terrible invasion of privacy. And those glorious days were past, when intellectual work was truly possible. Of course, there were nothing but ashtrays on the seminar table. It's tough going since those days. There's me doing my thing, and all you see is a nose out of this dense cloud of smoke. There was no face, just a nose. All one saw me was a focal object, but it doesn't wiggle very well, and so you couldn't get the blinks and the shrugs and all the other things, all that world of gesture, which is an unending commentary on speech. In the beginning, God created the world weak. I mean, it's every preacher knows that. He won't wink, but he knows the powers of that sort of thing. I remember homiletics class. Do you go out or do you come in? There are some places where you're in outreach and some places where you're in, God help us all, in gathering. You better think of the difference. And by the way, always go when you're a guest preacher and test out the pulpit. Find its sweet spot, a place where when you bam it, it'll have a real ring. Well, that's what you do as a teacher. You look at that classroom. That's your environment you're stuck with for the next how many times, and learn to master that environment. So no, there's no ideal classroom. You try to make each classroom into an ideal the best you can, and you will fail. But you work at it. It's part of the work you do. It's important to prepare it. That's part of the preparation. I don't know any more terrifying occupations than I remember a great scholar at the University of Chicago and persuaded him it was great cool to teach a college class. And called me up, would I mind walking over with him? I said, no, of course not. So I'm talking, he held my hand. It was like parent bringing kids. We walk hand in hand to the classroom. What I think students don't realize is how terrified teachers are of all of you. You're a very tough audience. Part of that terror goes into your desire to make a classroom as ideal as you know how to do it. You're not really thinking about the students at that moment. You're really thinking about making this thing work. Yeah, enough said.
What is your opinion of virtual classes?
My wife teaches piano to my granddaughter in California, if that's what you mean. I don't know what it is. Skype, that's what the damn thing's called. I only show up afterwards and I say hello and I feel like a jackass. I feel like the entire press of the United States is focused. I don't feel I can talk to my granddaughter in any ordinary person like this. I talk to her, and thank God the Gestapo's left the room and I can go to. But if that's what you mean, I suppose it's great. If you mean replacing me by a machine, Me and Mr. What's-his-name that begins with K are gonna join forces together. No. I am not the flexible machine, except for the most uninteresting part of me, when I convey you information, as far as I'm concerned. Though, you know, since I can't sing very well, there are other ways that, you know, Mr. Robinson has to do it to make education more entertaining. I think what the one thing you can do, because I understand it, and of course I do not, is you can do one thing that you cannot do with speech. You can do two things at the same time. And I think the great frustration to me as a teacher is I can't have two loud speakers with one thing coming out of one of them and another thing coming out of the other one. And now we get complexity going. I'm stuck with sheer seriality. One thing after another. That's what you do about it. Now, my understanding is you can conquer that to some degree. If that's the case, do it, but don't ask me to. That's what I feel.
You talk about being critical about the various tools of the academy. One of the biggest problems with technology, especially lately, is while older, more seasoned scholars know how to incorporate it and still keep that means of comparison, especially at the undergraduate level, most of these people, as you said, you don't want to be replaced by a machine, but a lot of these people let the machines replace themselves because it's a lot easier to get information from the internet and from the web and from computers than it is to, in a sense, come to one's own conclusions. And for this reason, a lot of people have argued that technology is making students not only, in a sense, shallower and just regurgitating knowledge. And I was curious if you have any idea of how to reintroduce argument and discourse into, in a sense, the modern technologically savvy classroom.
I don't know that that has to do with technology. It seems to me the one thing we fail to impress on our students is I really don't want to read your paper. That's not a deliberate voice. You've got the anticipation of objections. Whatever debate team diagnosis, you don't anticipate the objections. Got to bring me to period. And so I think we'll start laying down some laws like that and stick to it. I mean, I told my students that if you ever say a sentence with the word mere or just in it, you flunk. I won't permit that kind of word in my presence. And then I give them the example. I once asked a student to compare Yahweh and Marduk in terms of making the world and in terms of their creation stories, and wrote very cheerfully. Marduk merely created the universe, while Yahweh, and I just stopped.